Hey everyone, welcome to Experience This, show number 26. I'm Bruce Rosard, one of the co-founders of Arrival, and I'm so happy to be with you on this show.
And I'm Christian Watts, CEO and founder of Magpie Travel, content management platform for the experiences sector, and delighted to be here as well with Tony Carne.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony Carne. As Christian mentioned, I run the Everything AI in Travel newsletter and was previously Managing Director at Urban Adventures.
Tony, just as our special guest, give us a little bit of background. Tell us about your past life, especially Urban Adventures, since that's most related to experiences, and whatever else you've been doing during your travel industry career.
Yeah, for sure. So I started as a tour guide. So, any of the tour guides out there that are listening in, props to you. It's the greatest job in the world. So well done. And I worked for a company called Intrepid.Travel. Spent 17 years there. The first part of my career there was helping set up the Middle East destination for that company for their multi-day itineraries, and then was lucky enough to jag the role running a very nascent Urban Adventures, which was Intrepid's move into the day tour market. Spent 10 years there with a fantastic team of people, growing that out to 160 cities around the world. Franchise business, amazing partners, met great people all around the world, and we had a great time doing that. And then since the pandemic, I've moved into a consulting role, helping companies from startups through to more established businesses, unlock any problems that they have, where they're stuck in growth. And then a lot of my clients were actually asking me about AI, and I'm interested in it myself. Always been kind of looking at the horizon to see what's coming next. So got my head in there nice and early, and many thanks to Christian, who was also in there early in educating the community. And I signed up to about 10 different AI newsletters and thought, why isn't there one in travel, like specifically? So nobody else was doing it, so I thought I'd do it, and we've now got up to about the fifth edition of that newsletter, over 1,000 subs. So lots of people out there getting educated about this new revolution that's coming to take us all.
Yeah, I'll just say there's no reason not for everyone to sign up. I'm the same, Tony. I've probably got 10 regular AI ones that they're all kind of the same thing, right? Every day they send an update, which is also good, but they're not travel associated. So yours is great. It's what we need to see as far as what's happening in our industry. So kudos to you on that.
Tony, how often are you publishing that?
Yeah, once a week. So it's a roundup of basically what's happened in the week. There's normally 5 or 6 links that I've found that are particularly interesting, that are different to each other. And then I try and throw some pithy comments on top.
Oh, I'm sure you do. And 160 cities around the world for Urban Adventures. Christian, is there anyone else in our space that got even close to that as far as multi-cities?
Well, city sightseeing, I believe, maxed at about 120, I'd say. They're down below that now, post-COVID, but I'd say they must be the next biggest, right, Tony, as far as number of cities?
Yeah. As we all know, it's a difficult business to scale. So, we got to 160. Were they all massive businesses? No, they weren't. So, and I think Urban Adventures now is back at 120 or so. So, it's a tough business to get beyond that point, I think. But
well, how many cities warrant it, for one? And it's no longer franchise, right? Each one is now corporate owned by Intrepid.
I believe so. Like I'm out of that business now, so I don't have my head.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. There might be a few franchises left, but I think overall it's mostly Intrepid owned.
We haven't done a show on this exact topic, Bruce, and we should, right? The branding, the multi-city branding.
Multi-cities, yeah. We have a session on that at Arrival Orlando with some people who we should bring on and talk about that, maybe even before the event. Like a Stephen Otto or someone that works for him at City Experiences, Brian Kane, who just has a couple, but he's going to grow pretty fast. Justin Buzzy. I mean, there's a number of people who are really growing into multi-cities. It's a great topic for sure.
Yeah.
So on today's show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the startups that are out there. Most of them have AI involved with them, because it's almost like if you want to raise money these days, you need to have AI, kind of like 10 years ago, if you weren't mobile first, it was really hard to raise money. That's kind of what it's like with AI. So we're going to talk about the startups as our primary topic. And then if we have time at the end, we might talk a little bit about what's going to happen at Arrival in Orlando in about 3 weeks from now. So Christian, you've put together a list of who you think are some of the more interesting startups that are happening in our space. You want to lead us off with that?
Yeah, I just sort of picked a couple out. Some are very recent in the last week, but some are from a couple of months ago. The one I read about today, actually, it's not a fundraising round. It was on FocusWire, I believe. Today was not a startup, but putting travel agents into Staples. Do you have Staples in Australia, Tony? It's an office supply store. It's the #1 office supply store.
I know of it. I don't think it's here, but something
And
similar.
just an interesting one. They're putting travel agent. They tested it. They do the TSA pre-check, like photos and applications and that kind of thing. They worked out that works. And while people are waiting for that, they're going to try and sell them tickets to faraway places and hotels and experiences and that kind of thing. So we don't need to go too much into depth on that, but any quick comments?
Well, I mean, come on. Costco travel has been a huge thing for a long time. I don't think they have well, they might, because they have so much going on in their stores. Are they physically in the store at Costco? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Walmart travel has been a huge thing for a long time. So what's different here?
Well, you can name all those, but those could be affiliates or networks. These are putting people in a shop, in a travel agents. That's a
that's a new idea.
But so where is that customer in their journey if they're in there buying stationery or getting their photo done for their passport? Like if you got the photo done for your passport, you pretty much know you're going somewhere and maybe already booked it, you would think. So what are the opportunities there for them to sell? Probably in destination, as we know, is always undersold pre-departure. So like I guess there is an opportunity there, but is it a big enough opportunity to actually put a human in there? I don't know.
Yeah. It's probably more of a Staples story about what are they trying to be, right? And they're trying to be this sort of the one-stop shop, maybe. Anyway, the other one this is a couple of months ago.
One more thing, because I just Google's our friend, right? Again, I wanted to know what the hell are they doing in Staples? And I did travel in Staples, and all it talks about is how you get certified for pre-check. So that's like their lost leader. Like, come to Staples and you can get certified for TSA pre-check. So I'm kind of, you're 0 for 1 for bringing up a good startup, Christian. Let's
I was trying to move on. I'm trying to move on, and you
move on.
Want to go back to it. So they
have another shot at going, Christian.
They do mention work from home. People haven't got a place, so it's around
Let's
that.
Move on. Okay.
A hub to go and do stuff. Moving on.
Yeah.
Boddy. I know Boddy very well. I know the founders quite well. I met them at Arrival a couple of years ago in Berlin. So Boddy is, I think it's another brand, but Gym Pass. So they basically go and get gym one-day passes, and they are trying to be an OTA for those products. They also do sort of yoga classes and that kind of thing. So they're trying to be the fitness OTA, and they're trying to go, which you could say is not part of travel, but they're trying to make it part of travel. So they're trying to resell that to hotels, to OTAs, and make that one of the things that you buy when you go to a destination.
They've been around for a while. Been around a while.
So they just raised 2.2 million. I believe this was in July. So,
okay, are they UK focused or something? Because ClassPass has been doing that for at least 4 years.
Yeah, in the space they're Swiss. I think they've been big in the UK, and I think Spain were like 2 of their early markets, maybe Germany.
Yeah. So I mean, there's already there's a good leader out there in ClassPass that I think have done a really great job and are highly rated by the people who use them. And the people I've spoken to actually recently who use ClassPass have been telling me that they actually just love it as a booking software for their for their yoga or their Pilates or whatever. The tool's just so simple. So I think it kind of started as a way to go and try lots of different things and see which place might be right for you, and all those gyms etc. were happy to give away a freebie. So you buy your ClassPass, you get a free whatever. But now it's kind of more evolved into, well, this is just the best place to manage all my fitness stuff. So maybe that's the road they're going down. How that connects to travel, again, not really sure.
Well, I mean, there's this whole thing of wellness, right? Like wellness travel is a huge thing, and it can be on its own or part of. When you talk about, and what I understood from talking to the founders at the beginning, it was about booking gym time, or just getting a pass to go to a gym. And I always thought, well, don't most travelers, especially business travelers, have a gym in their hotel? But as you look further into what they're really doing and talking about wellness, they're talking about, like you said, Christian, yoga, boot camp, bouldering, all kinds of classes, climbing. I mean, a lot more than just using a gym. So I think they could really carve out a niche as an OTA for wellness, basically. Like, is that what you think they're trying to do?
Yeah, they definitely started out just as the 1-day gym pass, but have moved to a bit broader. And their idea was to go after the hotels that don't have gyms. They'd be an easy. So now the hotel can say, well, we have gym pass available. So now we're the same as the Marriott, whatever. But I think,
Right.
yeah, they've gone a bit broader than that. It kind of takes me back to the conversation we had a few weeks ago, Bruce, about the everything store. So do OTAs go in this direction where this just becomes one of the categories on the OTA?
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do, obviously, is make their own category there.
And what's the category, do you think?
It could be wellness, right? That would be a good name for a category that could include gym pass and goat yoga, which is already there.
We've talked about goat yoga. What's going on in Australia, Tony, in this sector?
So in the US, actually, ClassPass is like they've been around for a while. They're on a lot of the startup podcasts as a raging success. I think they've been on Reid Hoffman's podcast, etc. As a business that again did the marketplace where they commoditized something that they were able to get for free, which is the come and try at the gym type thing, and just turned into a pass so people could go around the town and try out lots of different things for free, and then pick the ones that they wanted and book them there. And as they started to book them, they made money that way. So, but the move to wellness, I think, makes sense. There's there's an industry already in people going away on yoga retreats and that kind of stuff. I guess the one thing I'd probably caution them on is almost all those, to the best of my knowledge, my wife was kind of in that world for a while, is that people go traveling with their own yogi. So their own yoga instructor will put on a retreat in somewhere, insert beautiful country here, and they'll sell places on that. Doesn't mean that individual travelers aren't also looking to go and do some yoga if they're in a beautiful place. That's a market as well. Don't know how big that market is though.
Bruce, do you travel with your yogi?
I don't even travel with my yoga mat.
Hey, it's Marika from the Von Mack Agency, here with your tourism marketing half minute. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the fallacy that tourism is recession-proof. Yep, that's definitely not true. So in today's economy, it might be a good time to start thinking about scarcity marketing. This is a technique that focuses on creating a sense of urgency and excitement all around your product. And studies have shown that customers are 30% more likely to purchase something when they believe it'll sell out. So try offering limited time packages, exclusive discounts, or even something VIP, but make sure to A/B test your results.
Modern Adventure's small group tours, they're based in Oregon. There's quite a few ex-Viator folks there. They just raised 4.8. They raised a couple million, I think 6 years ago now. So they just did a recent raise. So it seems like they're doing well, or continuing at least.
Yeah, I love that business personally. Like, I love it.
Okay.
So it is, you go traveling kind of with your hero in the thing that you're interested in. So be that, travel with a chef to a great eating destination, and they bring you in with their contacts. And, to me, it reads as being very special. And they got the advantage of having that hero being a sales force for them as well. So, if you're a restaurateur, you've got your own list. you know, and for a restaurateur, here's a way for you to make extra income. And most restaurateurs see all the other really famous restaurateurs on telly, and that's who they want to be eventually. So like this is a step towards that, and a great way for them to make money. So I think they were heavily in the food space, but I know they were branching out as well. But I think it's a great business, and it's more of an awareness thing. So hopefully that money is going to go into pouring a lot more acquisition on top and making people more aware of that there are these really great ways to travel if you do have a certain passion.
Very good. Bruce, anything on that?
I have a lot on that, actually. I've been looking a lot into what I'll just call passion travel. We had Dan Christian a few months ago, right? Christian, we talked to Dan Christian, on some of the things he's doing, like having soccer, or in their verbiage, a football star company tours. And that was one thing that they were working on. Just was posted an article in Focus Wire about Drew Patterson, who's done a lot of stuff in our industry, and how he's created Thermal, which is basically an OTA for surfing and bringing on local legends turned surf guides. And that's part of what he's doing. And those are more like 7 to 10 day deluxe tours versus kind of the experiences that we talk about. And I think Modern Adventures, same thing, right? They're all week long. They're not short experiences. They're week long adventures.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's a huge sector for those long adventures, but even for coming into, so I was in Ireland a couple of weeks ago. I had no idea, but Notre Dame football, American football, was also in Ireland, playing in Dublin the last day of our vacation. And the whole week or 10 days that we were in Ireland, anywhere in the country, there were Notre Dame t-shirts, Notre Dame hats, so they were following a team versus following a person. This whole idea of people following their passion. I mean, look at Beyonce, her tour, and Taylor Swift's tour generating $5 billion of revenue, basically people following them on tour. Can't even imagine what the Grateful Dead might have generated over their 30 or 40 years of being on tour, right? So people follow their passion.
They forgot to charge anyone, the Grateful Dead, didn't they? They forgot to charge anyone.
What's that?
They forgot to charge anyone for coming. Like
they charge for tickets. But so I think this whole thing is part of a new part of the economy, the passion economy for travel. So passion travel. And, Tony, if you know these guys and what they're doing, just looking at their site, they're certainly looking super interesting. And each tour is accompanied with a rock star. I think that's great.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so they're quite similar to Dharma, the business you're talking to.
Dharma, exactly.
Christian, and then the next step down is kind of Trover Trip. So it's a different type of hero. It's I guess the millennial hero, the influencer style trips. Also, that's an interesting business because it's actually catching the customers the hard part. Like it's figuring out things on the ground that are interesting to do and finding people to run them. Certainly not. I guess I've probably got the advantage of them been doing it for 20 years, so I find that side of it quite interesting. So for me, I'm far more interested in these business models that have a different way of building acquisition and building it through an influencer or a more established hero who's just kind of another type of influencer. I think that's super interesting.
But then just on one more time and one more thing. Yes, but the but is you got to probably pay those influencers some pretty top dollar, because they are the stars of their industry. I heard a podcast on Tourpreneur a couple weeks ago, and you commented on it too, Tony. So I know you're familiar with Home Fans, which is a very similar thing, except there's no influencer. It's just a local who knows the city where your team is. So let's say I'm from Boulder, Colorado, and I went to Dublin to see Notre Dame, and I love Notre Dame, but I know nothing about Ireland. And there was someone in Dublin who was a local that could take me around, make sure I go to the right bars and restaurants. That to me is a very cool business model. I'm very interested in what they're doing. And you said you love what Home Fans is doing also. I think there's just so much potential around this concept.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Rio Urban Adventures, their biggest selling tour was taking people to the football in Rio. Like, it was a whole business in itself. Like, it was a massive enterprise, and you got to know how to get the tickets. And you got to know where the good places are to sit. What's safe, what's not safe. In some arenas and some sports matches, and then it's not just the game. You want to feel the atmosphere of the day. It's finals football time here in Australia at the moment. They had 96,000 people at the MCG last night, and the city is just absolutely thumping both before and after the game. And if you're not from here, you want to be with people who are from here and get taken on that ride. And,
right.
And
like better. With American football in America, tailgating is huge. So I can see people coming into Philly for the Eagles game last night, which they did win. Thank you. And the local guide could go get to the parking lot early, put out a space where, okay, meet me here at the tailgate an hour before the game, 2 hours before the game. I'll have beer, wine, food, whatever, as part of that overall experience. It's just super cool. So I'm going to give you a thumbs up on that one, Christian. Wow. So you're 1 for 3.
Thanks, Bruce. I just want to say that these events have always been there, but I don't think they ever realized they were kind of top of the funnel, right? So you're going to Chicago to see Taylor Swift, and now they own the top of that funnel. They just never chose anything with that before. Now they're pulling it in together. I think we all
create a whole economic sector behind them. Actually, again, at Arrival, I have a session that I'm running with Major League Baseball, the Orlando Magic, Broadway Inbound, and Ticketmaster. That's who's on my panel to talk about this whole concept.
Yeah. I went to watch the Newcastle Magpies a couple of weeks ago in the UK, and they do tailgating in England. It's called the pub, and they just drink beer, and there's nothing else.
You got to know which pub. You got to know which pub, and you got to have a seat in the pub.
A seat in the pub? Come on.
No.
Right,
yeah.
A space.
You definitely don't want to turn up the pub in the wrong jumper. That's for sure. Because
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Quick one now. A company called Travelshift, which I think probably nobody's heard of. I didn't read up too much about it. Maybe you did, Tony. They just raised, I didn't write this down. I think it was 5 million. They're an OTA based in Iceland, OTA and Trip Planner. And the reason I pulled this one up is, I can't believe I didn't write the number. Maybe somebody could look up the number, but it was $5 million or thereabouts. And that would have been a big deal maybe 5 years ago. And today you raise that sort of money. Nobody, after Get Your Guides, $1 billion, includes 700 million. These $5-10 million are not hitting anybody's radar, but it's still happening. People are still trying to beat an OTA.
Yeah, so these guys have added AI, so they've actually been around for quite a while, for like 12 years or something like that from memory. And they have a couple of good URLs. I think one's called guidetoeurope.com. So that's kind of their consumer-facing platform. And then Travelshift is the technology that sits underneath it. I guess the caveats on the raise are it all came from the existing investor, or at least they were the lead and put the bulk of the money in. And it was somebody weird. It was like a car company. I can't remember exactly which one, but
was it GE? Someone might have been GE.
Yeah, GE. That's right, GE. I knew it was like it was something very tangential. So, but look, they have recently got on a new CEO, managing director. So, and he looked fairly well credentialed. So I think they've got in someone to kind of come in and overhaul the business and see where it's at, and then they've latched on to AI as the next big thing, and then put that in their snazzy deck and gone back to their existing investors and said, AI is going to blow this thing up. Let's go. So we'll see how they go.
It's just going through it, I'm not seeing how, other than it's like you said, it's AI, how it's any different than an OTA.
Yeah. So I think they've only just released their AI interface. And I guess the big question here is the world going to go through an interface change? Like, is typing a question and then getting a full, complete answer in paragraphs what the world's looking for, or the next step along from that is just asking, with your voice and receiving a voice answer back, which is actually these days equally as simple if you're utilizing AI. So that could be the new interface. And I think that's kind of what we're looking for here. We're looking for an interface change. Technology businesses just reorganize information. That's kind of their strength. And that's why people put money into them and expect outsized returns, because adding one extra user to a piece of technology shouldn't cost a lot or anything at all. And that's what everyone's betting on. So it's really just, is the world in general going to move to a new interface? Is the way that information is going to be organized or delivered to people going to change in a significant way? And who's going to be at the forefront of that? And I think that's kind of where this race is at the moment.
You guys are studying this way more than I am. Is there any of the plugins, Expedia, Booking, Trip.com, Get Your Guide, have any of them moved the needle yet with their plugins?
I don't know anybody who uses plugins, so that's
plugins don't work.
They don't work. But there's a lot of publicity about them.
You need to be a paid user of GPT to get access to the plugin, so there's already friction there. So like the people that, and like we're early adopters. You walk out the door here and start talking to people in the street, they haven't even heard of GPT like that. And I think a piece I put in the article in the newsletter last week, only 18% of US citizens have used or heard of GPT. So like we're at the nascent beginning.
Well, but Christian's in San Francisco. I'm in Boulder. We walk out our door, it's closer to 90%, half.
Okay.
But I still don't know
the total spending audience of the world, then we'd be fine.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I think there's 3 AI conferences this week in San Francisco. But back to the plugins. The plugins is the right structure as far as a layer on top and information on the side of the large language model. But just the way it was released, I don't think it was ever meant to be, this is going to move the needle. So I think that as a plugin the way it is now, it was never meant to. They're just kind of messing with stuff, and it's limited how to access it. Kind of doesn't work the way it is right now, but that will adapt, and the plugin type infrastructure will move the needle in the future, I believe.
Yeah, I think like OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, they're figuring out who they are and what they want to do as well. So, I think the plugins were basically like, well, if ChatGPT becomes the new homepage of the internet, i.e. replaces Google, then, what is the App Store or, that sits on top of that, so they're kind of mashing a few things together, and that philosophy actually really works well. Like, if the first place everybody opens their computer is GPT, and that's a platform, and then any company can build their own app on top of that, then you can bid to like say, well, I want my app to show up if someone hasn't installed, a flights one. Well, I want mine to be the flight one, and you make money that way. So, but I think they're just figuring out, okay, what's going on here and what's going to make money, and then how are we going to go and play about that, but they're going to be a platform of some description, but how you build on top of that platform is the interesting thing, and
yeah. And I think it was a good move, because basically everyone was scrambling to build a plugin, which is just like saying, we're going to give you all of our data, not to train on, but to access, to search on, to see what happens with it. And everyone's dying to do that. So OpenAI is getting to look at that and seeing how that works with their language models. So I'm sure they're learning a ton how those two things play together.
Yeah, and look, the other way that they're going about it is their developer docs were unbelievable. Like, you go and dig into their developer docs, and they've said, we built this thing, it's really cool, go play with it. And you go and play with it, like, ooh, like it's like a magical thing. Like, they built a genie. And then in their docs, they say, and this is how you can use the genie. Like, they say, oh, you can use this to query PDFs. And next thing you know, the AI newsletters that Christian and I get, like, every one of them is just full of a PDF query. Like, ask your PDF questions, or, because OpenAI just said, here's what you can do with it, and here's how you do it. And everyone went, oh, I'm ahead of the curve here, so I'm going to get that out as a product, and away I go. And, alter images, here's how you alter images. And now there's all these ways to alter images, like as a product out of the service for just general consumers to type stuff in and make magic happen. So that's kind of where we're at. And they can be just the underlying infrastructure like an AWS, that just powers everything. And that's another way that they can monetize this thing. And so I think they're just, like I said, they're just trying to figure out which is the best approach for them.
So I've got two left. On the subject of AI, both of these are AI companies, pure AI. One is Mindtrip. This came out, I think, last week. They've raised $7 million pre-beta. So they haven't got a product yet. You can't test it, and they've raised $7 million. I know why, but let's see what you guys think of it.
Yes, it's
a travel planner. So it's an itinerary/travel planner.
Can't wait to hear what Bruce. I know he loves travel planners. So this one's interesting in that it has 12 co-founders. 12. Like, that's a lot of consensus required to make anything happen. So like, it's already kind of a bit left field from that perspective. But the CEO of it is a multi-exited founder. And so his last thing was a thing called Roadster, something about auto sales or whatever, did extremely well, sold for $360 million. The estimate was that it was a 15x return for the lead investor that went in on that. And surprise, surprise, the lead investor and only investor this time around is that same person. So like, this guy's already made them $360 million, and they've said, here's another 7, do it again. So that's kind of where we're at. And I think if you look from the outside and say, look at travel planning, it feels like a thing that should need a solution. And then you've got the AI level, which, out of the box gives you an 80% decent solution. So like, putting those two things together, throwing some money at it and some smart people, it seems like a reasonable bet. Of course, when you use it the third time, you realize it's actually not that good. And we'll just tell you anything, even whether it's true or not. And turns out it's a really hard thing to actually fix within it. And I've got lots of thoughts about why that is. So, look, they're backing the jockey, not the horse here. We'll see how it goes.
Bruce?
Well, I don't know a lot about it because I just found out about it when you told me. And their website just says, click here to get on the wait list, right? Although it does talk about a pretty impressive group of people who are involved and engaged. Like, so what are they doing? Do we have any idea, or we just know they're going to create an AI-based trip planning tool?
So I've seen a report where somebody got shown a demo that was impressive, and that's all I know.
That's all you know, right?
Yeah. But it's quite easy to make AI do impressive things, to the novice, for sure.
So do these guys understand travel?
No.
Very successful.
They've got no history in travel, so I don't think they've asked. Well, who knows who they've asked, but they haven't been out on the sort of circuit.
I'll just go on my rant. Every time you give me a trip planning tool to look at until one shows up. TripAdvisor understands travel pretty darn well, right? They came out with their AI trip planning tool. We've all played with that a little bit. And I don't know if anyone has, after playing with it a little bit, said, this is really great. And I go back to why. Personalization. Like, how many personas do you all have when you travel? Right?
What are you talking about? No, that's exactly what GPT can do with personalization.
But it doesn't know who I am. It doesn't say, so there's no, when you talk about that user interface, Tony, I think you're right on. Like, the first user interface is, when are you traveling and where are you going to? Like, that's how you have to start. I mean, Airbnb has done some really great work around, not necessarily. I think Kayak has done some nice work around that, not necessarily. But a trip planning tool, where are you going and when? Instead of, who are you today, Bruce? Are you corporate? Family, with kids, without kids? Okay, shake your head, that's fine. But who am I?
I'll save it.
Who am I? Am I open to multiple destinations? What do I want to do? And give me a curated version. So if we talk about experiences, and most of these AI large language models, tell me if I'm wrong, are pulling content from Viator, Get Your Guide, and others similar. So they're showing me 1 million possible experiences. and I'm not getting to where I really find something I want. Now that's today. You keep arguing it's going to change.
Well, first of all, they're not pulling experiences. The GPT doesn't know what a product is. It's got no idea what a tour is and what isn't.
Even on the TripAdvisor or the Get Your Guide trip planning tool or whatever they're working. Well, with TripAdvisor, I should say.
But they push database products into it. But the actual GPT piece is just text. Doesn't know what product is, paid versus free basic, whatever. But the bit I'm shaking my head is because your persona thing is what I argue all the time. And I've always pushed back against trip planning and all these people that have got these databases of all our preferences and all this junk over 10 years, which I think is junk. But that's the one thing GPT does solve, because your preferences now is I'm going away this weekend with my family, 2 kids, 4 years old, 2 years old, whatever. And that's exactly what GPT can do. So I think you don't need the historical preferences and historical personas, but you can tell it who you are today for this trip. Maybe that wasn't part of the UX yet on the TripAdvisor one, but that's what GPT will solve.
Yeah, and you can now you can store these prompts as well. So like you can set them up pre-existing, so you know that the 5 ways that you travel are with kids, without kids, business, not leisure, yada yada, and you can set up all those prompts and just choose which one you want the answer for by clicking a button. So like that OpenAI.
In the trip planner, there's trip planners.
Well, no, it's in OpenAI, so it's up to the devs now to take these pieces that OpenAI are building as the infrastructure piece, as this AWS style piece, and build on top of that. So like it's there if the people want to do it. Like, so you listen to Brian Chesky at Airbnb, he is going 1,000% in on personalization. So that's where he sees his.
So when I go to Airbnb in the future, I might have 3 or 4 different personas, and I'll say, okay, today I'm traveling for travel, for business, and Airbnb will do what I want, or I'm going to a conference.
It might just say, it might just know these are your 4 or 5 preferences and say, which one's this trip for?
Which one are you today?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Who are you today, Bruce? And then, I've got some theories on things that they might.
How long till we see that, do you guys think?
They could do that today. TripAdvisor could have done that on day one, right? They could put a little text box in there. The problem they've got, if they ask you to type in a paragraph of preferences, obviously no one's going to do it. So they started with the cheap, easy stuff like 1 drop down, 1 date field, go, because that's all people have got time for. But it needs to be voice, but they could do it. Practically, it's no different. Giving it a whole paragraph of your preferences isn't any more difficult than not. GPT does that behind OpenAI does that for you.
The TripAdvisor one didn't seem a lot beyond what I could do by just clicking their filters. To me, it was just kind of giving me a filtered answer, but then giving me paragraphs in words that were being written in front of my eyes based on what that filtered data had come back as. And I think that's kind of how they were using AI and producing that magic. It's like, click this filter, this filter, this filter for this guy, and here's a trip. And then now let's write this in some, in a language that sounds inspirational to make him want to do the next thing. It wasn't, there was no deep level of personalization in there. I mean, I think what we might see from Airbnb, let's like put a finger in the air and have a crack at it. I reckon they might go in and kind of mine the reviews that you've given to past hosts, for example, and say, why did I give this 5 stars? I gave this 5 stars specifically because this host was, cut fresh flowers for me every day that I was there, and then they'll take this information and actually provide future hosts with a quick bullet point list of how you can wow this incoming guest of things that they've said they really love in the past. I think that would be a really clever way for them to utilize it in a way that nobody else does.
Just leave me coffee and a French press, and you get a 5-star period.
Well, if you put that in the review, then that's what you'll get. Or at least your host will be told.
And I would argue, so this is all great, and I'll look forward to that. And Airbnb has the best potential of really delivering what we're talking about here versus the trip planner that is trying to tell me I'm in a certain city for 3 days, so I should do boom, 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 boom. That's what I think is going to be really, really hard. That's
boring as well. It's totally boring. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody really wants that.
Yeah.
There was a great, there's this other great podcast, not just this one, there's other great podcasts.
There's lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's one, Lenny's podcast, who's a product manager at Airbnb, so to kind of tie it into the conversation. And he recently had a guest on who was the head of growth at a business called Deal. And they're the fastest growing thing ever, basically, beyond OpenAI. And they said, how did you do it? How did you do that? And she said, actually really simple. She said, if people have an actual problem, there'll be a place on the internet where they are complaining about that problem. So you go and find that place on the internet and you'll see all these people complaining, giving answers and da-da-da-da-da. So my question is, where on the internet are all these people complaining about this trip planning problem? Like, they're not. It doesn't exist. Like, maybe in the past there was kind of the Lonely Planet thorn tree where people might be getting a little bit down in the detail of how do I logistically do this thing that's quite difficult in this far off place in the world. But it was never like, I've got 2 weeks off. Where can I go? You know,
Which I agree with that, but then there's also the people in the 1880s demanding faster horses sort of thing, and there's the iPhone is always an example as well. No one ever asked for the iPhone, so I don't discount trip planners just because no one's saying I need a trip planner. Everyone comes in with these pictures saying travel is broken, 32 websites, blah blah blah. Maybe these guys are just that, but they've done something else successfully before, so they got lots of money. Maybe they know something we don't. But like you just said, Tom, they got the 7 million. Exactly, because they did this before. So if you're listening to this and you're not a previous founder and you're expecting $7 million, you haven't got a chance. A new founder might have raised 70,000 with a pre-beta website, if that actually. But one more, because we are going long today. Also AI, and it's called Tailbox. This one just popped up. They raised 1.5 million. These are a couple of MIT master's students with an AI tour guide. So this, for me, tour guide and trip planning is the same thing, but one's in destination. One's kind of planning and one's real-time showing, but really it's the same thing. I spoke to somebody else last week who's about to launch a product on this, doing audio snippets on the fly as you walk through a city. So digital tour guide, this is what we've all talked about since GPT came out. It's what all the tour guides are kicking and screaming, saying you'll never be as good as a real tour guide. What do you guys think?
Well, I only just become aware of it, but maybe they read my newsletter, because I actually put this in. I have an idea each week that I put into the newsletter, and this was the idea in the very first edition of that newsletter. So I think it's a huge opportunity. And so the problem with a trip planner is you're asking it to predict something in the future. Yeah. So I want to go and do this thing. And if you ever go and use it, just use GPTs, tell it the trip you want. It will come back and you'll, on first glance, you'll read it and you'll go, that's pretty bloody good. And then you'll dig into it and go, actually, you can't get from that place to that place in the amount of time that they've allocated here. And when I do get there, I won't have time to do the thing that they've said I should do there. And it doesn't understand geography, etc. What it does extremely well is summarize the past. Like, it is awesome at that. If you give it the base information and say, summarize this and turn it into a story to me, and turn it into a story in the tone of Wilbersmith, or whatever it happens to be, it will do that amazingly. And then take that script and now read it to me in the voice of David Attenborough. It can do that. Like, all that is simple. So if you are walking through a city, it is possible for you to tell the GPT or the app or the product that you're building where you are, and it can go and look up that information, summarize it, bring it back to a story, and tell you a story. So I'm pretty bullish on it. I think it's a good idea, and it will take some market. It will absolutely take some market.
I think it's a good idea, but the but being, isn't it just a self-guided tour plus what they're doing? So self-guided tours have been around forever, right? Again, going back to being in Ireland and going on a city sightseeing tour of Dublin, and we did one in Galway. Very different experiences, but part of the experience was the self-guided tour. What you're on the hop on hop off bus, and the guy's telling you what you're seeing and what you're looking at. There's a lot of more modern tech, right? Companies that are out there that are building self-guided tour tech that they're doing tours all over the world now. Companies like Clio Muse, for example, that have done that. And if they were able to use this AI version, I mean, pretty much you would start at the beginning and you'd say, hey, I really care about history, or I really care about architecture, or I really care about food, right? And then that tour that you're hearing on your headphones, instead of it being the same thing that each of us are hearing, we're getting it customized for what we care about. And I think that's what they're doing from what I can tell. So is it really much different than a customized self-guided tour? And the challenge is still going to be, Tony, what was the secret of Urban Adventures? It was your tour guides, right? I mean, the tour guides that were awesome tour guides were able to tell stories. That's who got your 5-star reviews and why people came back year after year to Urban Adventures in different cities. And
I totally agree. Like I agree with that. And what was probably the worst bit of our tour guide's job was telling that story from 1842 where yada 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 did snorri 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 blah 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 blah. So now the AI can cover that off for the customer. They can walk around the streets with their earpods in and get that information at leisure, and that will open up the space for what the Urban Adventures guides did, which is like, now come with me, local, down this way you would never have come down, and let me blow your mind. So like the AI still won't be able to do that stuff yet.
You think it's a combo? You think it's a combo?
Absolutely. I was always very bullish, although Christian or his masters would never deal with me, that hop on, hop off and Urban Adventures together was your ultimate 4 days in a city. Yeah, like get on the thing, whiz around, look to your left, there's the building, it's exciting. Now get off the bus and let's go 5 streets back and see the other side of it. Like, to me,
I see that. I like that as a hybrid. And that's, again, someone having travel savvy to understand that they're not just building a self-guided tour, but they're building a model that can be done as a hybrid. And a self-guided tour, because let's face it, that's pure margin once they build it.
Yeah, the problems are the friction is a problem that you mentioned, right? You'd have to sort of download stuff, go somewhere, kind of build it, even though it's really quick. It's not a person. I think we all agree that a good tour guide is going to beat this every day of the week. But the difference between the audio tours today is kind of what you said, Bruce. So I'm stood here at my hotel. I'm going to walk to the Eiffel Tower. It's a half-hour walk. Create me a tour from here to the Eiffel Tower, and 30 seconds later, I got an audio tour built around my preferences of that tour as I walked to where I was going to walk anyway. That's what's possible today with these things, which it's just less structured. It's more open to whatever you want, but it's an interesting space. We've got long today, but I do think we should talk about Arrival that's coming up in, how long have we got, Bruce? 3 weeks?
We got 3 weeks. Yeah, I could probably tell you how many days. If I looked and I see October 9 on my calendar, that's 15.
That's not the important. That's not the important thing here.
We have 24 days,
24
and
days, okay.
we will have over 1,000 people for sure, probably closer to 1,100. So we're super psyched about that. Our biggest event ever was Vegas in 2018, and then Orlando 2019, which hit. Both of those were over 1,200. So we're kind of back from COVID, which we're super excited about, and there's a lot of excited people about the event.
And is it an extra day this time, or I there's half days and stuff? Is it
not really? So Monday we call Arrival Day, which is mostly meetings, and then a couple other things like the Octo meeting that you're very involved in, Christian, our welcome orientation. Fair Harbor's doing their Spark conference, which is their kind of user conference. We have the Water Sports Forum on Monday. Trip camp is happening on Monday. So a lot of miscellaneous stuff Monday, but most people come and have meetings when there's not much else going on. That's Monday. And then Tuesday, we're doing what we call the Exchange Unboxed Tuesday morning from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. If people can get up early enough, we sure hope so, because we've put a shitload of work into this new kind of exchange. And then there's lunch, and then we really kick into our Arrival Theater right after lunch with the theater, and then some breakouts. And then our awards ceremony Tuesday evening. Wednesday all day we go through with theater, breakouts, demo labs, etc. Big party Wednesday night. And then Thursday our big attractions forum, so content that's focused on attractions and large operators, and we end at 1 o'clock.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, I'll be there. I'm looking
unfortunately,
forward
I
to it.
won't be there. I really wish I was going to be there, but that will help some people get up earlier.
If you were there, what's that?
I said, I wish I was going to be there, but because I'm not, other people will be able to get up earlier.
Oh, because you're not. I get it, because you're not at the bar. Well, so I think Christian will handle that. Christian, just real quick, something that you don't know about that I've already negotiated for us. We're going to do a joint podcast. Experience This Travel Trends with Dan Christian, Awkward Water Sports guys. And I'm waiting to hear back from Mitch at Tourpreneur to see if he wants to join too. We just have to decide if we want to do it live from Arrival or record it at Arrival, and then publish it across all the different podcast formats. So
12 of us.
Are you in for
12
that?
of us are going to speak. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
12 people on one podcast. Is that how it's going to be?
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right.
If you can have 12 people found a startup, you can have 12 people on a podcast. No
There you
problem.
go. Right.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Hey, Tony, so great to have you here. Really appreciate it. I think we're going to need to have you back because Christian just loves to talk AI, and we need someone who's, make sure he's not the smartest guy in the room all the time. So
I appreciate the invite, and anyone out there listening, just Google everything AI in travel, and you'll find me there, either the LinkedIn version or I have a Beehive version that you can read. I do a audio summary for those who can't stand my long emails. It's like a 3-minute listen, and it will keep you up to date on what's happening in AI in the past week, and sometimes give you ideas that then go on to raise $1.5 million.
and just so you know, he's not pitching. It is all free. So there you go.
It's free.
Yeah.
Get in there. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Bruce.
See you soon.
Okay.
Okay.